Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of SCIPOD. Science is not just for scientists, science is for society, and science is for the country. Communication of science to the general public is one of the responsibilities of scientists because science communication helps people to understand the world around them, build trust in science, and encourage participation and scientific literacy. Good quality science has been produced in Nepal as shown by the number of papers published in prestigious journals. Still, there is insufficient efforts in disseminating scientific information to the public. In this episode, we will discuss on why communicating science to the public is important. Our guest for today is world-renowned award-winning scientist and science communicator Dr. Uttam Babu Shrestha.
Global IME Bank, Sabai Lagi Bank.
Dr. Shrestha has more than 20 years of experience in organizational leadership, research, teaching, student management in universities and research institutions in Nepal, Germany, the USA, and Australia. Dr. Shrestha is extensively involved in interdisciplinary research in the field of human use of natural resources, climate change, biodiversity, and ecosystem services, and land use change. He is contributing to science communication through popular newspaper articles, photography, research paper, talks, and media coverage. Welcome, Dr. Shrestha.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining Insight for today, sir. As we mentioned in the introduction, you are award-winning scientist and the science communicator. So why do you think it's important to communicate science to the general public?
Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. And to answer your question, why it is important to communicate science to public, right? Mm-hmm. So from laboratory to the leap of a person, mm-hmm. right? So there need some bridge. Mm-hmm. We scientists normally, work in the lab or field in different domains, and we generate knowledge, facts, informations, and then we have to communicate that among our fellow scientists. Mm-hmm. And there are other stakeholders, mm-hmm. And that is the bigger part of it. Mm-hmm. That is the society, and that includes general public, that includes policy maker, mm-hmm. Decision makers, businesses, industries. So many stakeholders are there. Mm-hmm. So, and we need to communicate with them. So normally, we have a tendency to communicate within our domain, within our community, like fellow scientists. We go to the conference, we give a talk in the university, research institutions, publish paper, mm-hmm. but that is not enough. Mm-hmm. So there are, as I said, larger part of the stakeholders is outside that community, mm-hmm. and we need to communicate. And as you
is the skill needed to communicate with the scientists and to the public? It's different.
Absolutely. And as you just mentioned during the introduction, that the scientific communication helps to build the trust, yes. in science, mm-hmm. and among scientists. Society has to trust them. Mm-hmm. So one way we can build the trust is communicating. So if we communicate more, then we can build trust. Even like this is the basic human tendency, right? Yeah. So that is one thing. And another thing is that we need to communicate science to solve the societal challenges. Mm-hmm. There is the knowledge and the power dynamics. We work in the knowledge domain, mm-hmm. as a scientist, mm-hmm. and there is another domain that is the power. Mm-hmm. Mostly, that is within the political leaders, decision makers, bureaucrats, mm-hmm. and to translate that knowledge into the action. And the power, the role of power comes in, right? So, and we need to inform them, mm-hmm. so that they can translate that into their actions. That is another thing. And another part is the importance of science communication for a country like us. There is a superstitions, and the public understanding of the scientific knowledge is very poor. And also with the information technology and the mobile phones, there is misinformation floating around, and all the fake news and those viral things, and we need to communicate to provide them the right information, truthful informations that helps to make the society more rational.
Yeah, I'm also the regular reader of your op-ed, and can you just share your experience? How
Sure,
was
definitely.
its impact on the society, and how did you receive the feedback from the audience, policymakers, and everybody around there? What was the significance of your work? And
I over the last, I would say, over the last 20 years, I have been writing popular articles, mostly in the domains of science, in the public, not in the scientific journals, but the public forums like, as you said, Kantipur, Nagarik, Delhi, Online Cover, many other like the news outlets that I have been writing. And through that write-up, I mostly communicate information about the latest knowledge, not in my field, my field that I work in climate change, biodiversity, those issues, but also the other domains like behavior psychology, like the misinformation, social media, lots of stuff. And regarding the what type of feedback I get, normally that helps my career, and lots of people know me, about my research. They also thank me through the social media and from various means as well, depending on their interest. And if my article has some make some clicks in their brain or whatever, they just call me, and then that's the normal response. And some of the article that really helps to make some changes in actions. I can give one example of that. So one time I wrote an article about sex differences, like the male and female. And what is the biological need of male and female? And I read papers about it, and then I found that the need of female is different than the need of male. Like this is just an example of the public toilet. So when you go to the public places like cinema or parks or where there is a big gathering, then you will notice there is a long line of people queuing in the female toilets. So usually the line is longer in the female toilets than the male toilets. And there is a reason for that, and because the biologically male can do faster and female needs more time, and also most of the time women have their kids going together, and if they are pregnant or if they have some menstruation or whatever, and they need more time. So obviously but when they design the toilet, they think they divide equal places for male and female. So basically, and then that is not enough. So that is not enough. That's why there is a long queue in the female toilets. Right? And I wrote this article, and then I mentioned this fact in one of my article, and then that was one of his name is Deepak Lamichhane. He used to be the chief of the botanical garden Godavari, and he read that, and he immediately noticed that's happening in his park as well. And then he added, I think, 4 more toilets. And then that helps, to reduce the long queues in the female toilets. So, one of such immediate kind of action that I have seen, and he mentioned about that to me, and I was happy to know that it has an impact. And apart from that, many like the students who reads my article, they thank me
for giving the research ideas.
Giving the research ideas for them, and some of the policymakers, particularly when I go to the public offices, like government offices, mostly, the secretaries, undersecretary, joint secretary, they read those articles and then, oh yeah, I have read your articles, and it helps us, to think what we have the blind spot.
One people can make such impact. We have a very good scientist, if the scientists speak out more, maybe there could be more impact in the society. So why are not like the scientists being a good communicator in a public domain? What do you think about it?
One of the things that we are not communicating enough is that our training, like in our schools, in our universities, I haven't seen any lectures or any curriculum that helps to develop our communication skills. Now the things has been changing, but when I was a graduate student or undergrad here, we didn't have any classes or any kind of environment to learn, how to communicate science. Not only how to communicate, writing scientific article is also part of it, and we don't have that sort of like a formal and informal training, and mostly even in our academic settings, these days, things is changing. Things are changing, but when we were students, that was there. And in other, like in overseas and other part of the world, still, there are also problems, but they also they have this formal sort of like a skills developing curricula. They teach how to communicate with scientific and non-scientific audiences, and that is one barrier. The another barrier perhaps is there is no incentives for scientists for communicating science, right? So if like I know your background, you are faculty in TU, and you are doing this is a part of science communication also, right? So you are doing this through your own interest and your motivations. You want to do something, right? But there is no such mechanism that values, that give incentives, that incentivize your effort in the academic settings, right? So that is another part. So, and also the one is the incentives and the skills, and also there is very few audiences here in Nepal who can really understand science, proper science. So that is, because, if you look at the number of students in +2, for example, almost 13 or 14% of them are taking science major. If you go to the higher level, maybe undergrad, the percent reduced to less than 8%, right? So that means, there is there aren't many audiences who can understand science. That's why this is the feedback loop here. If you communicate more, there will be the audience as well. Like the cricket, I can give you the example of cricket match. Nepal used to be like the football loving country. Now there is a big craze of cricket, right? So they created the market. So if we communicate science, and we can create audience, and they start liking it, and so this is how the whole ecosystem will build. So basically, you know, these are the three factors I can see.
What do you think the impacts of not communicating science?
One of the things that we have been seeing mostly in developmental policies and practice here in Nepal is we always say that our policies are not based on evidence, you know, although we advocate evidence-based policies, but it's not happening. Partly we publish our research in scientific journals, and many of those scientific journals are not accessible to to the policy makers or the decision makers, and we love to publish in the so-called high impacted journals, and which also has the paywalls and they have the, you know, barrier of accessing those articles, and so the impact is, you know, that we ended up like making policy not based on evidence. That is one thing. And the other thing is that, as you said, you know, there is a the entire society is plagued by, you know, superstitions, you know, misinformation, fake news, and this is partly because we don't communicate science properly. We communicate, but not properly, perhaps. So there are, and also, you know, that also reduce the interest or the trust on science and reading scientific literature. So there are several consequences.
I know nowadays, like it's a social media age. We can communicate through social media, even mainstream media, and we can even have our own personal media. But do you think the media, the government, are friendly to science and technology in Nepal?
Well, it's yes or no. Yes, because, you know, we have proper structures for doing science. We have universities, you know, where we teach science, and we have several research institutions, both run by government as well as non-governmental effort, and private institutions as well. But the quality of research, the quality of teaching science in our universities, the quality of our research is, as compared to other part of the world, is very low. And the amount of funding, the incentives mechanism, the overall research ecosystem is not conducive. So that's why I said, you know, yes, there is a system put in place, but it's not well functioning, I would say.
What about media? You appear in multiple media coverage and newspaper articles. If somebody like working on science approach to the mainstream media, or how the media people can reach out to the scientists to collect those scientific information or scientific talks?
Well, I think I would say like 5 or maybe 10 years ago, media were not receptive. They don't care much about science. Right, science, and most of our medias are focused on political, you know, hearsay and, you know, the political events, and which is kind of never ending. And I felt that when I have a conversation with the media people, you know, I felt that there is a like the big, I would say, the trust for learning science, and also knowing, you know, and they are actually looking for, you know, somebody who can write, who can communicate, you know, science through their media outlet. And now there is a huge demand. Like, you know, you are doing this here in one of the popular media, and there are, and many people also, like many media outlet, they ask me to send an article. Unfortunately, I don't have much time to write in every like media outlet, but they were saying, there
So
are
that means
very
there is a scope now.
Yeah,
if
there
the
is a
scientist
scope.
wants
Yes,
to write it out,
absolutely.
speak out,
Yes,
then there is a scope now, like
Yes.
the media are receptive on
Yeah.
that aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were talking about the interdisciplinary research and even the you establish you're like a private research institution, right? So
Yeah.
like, how is it working? How is the environment for that interdisciplinary science
Okay.
environment and your initiatives on that?
I studied abroad and
Yeah.
I did my research, as you mentioned during the
Yeah.
introduction. Did my research, mostly overseas. I came here, I think, almost 4.5 years ago, and established one research institution called Global Institute for Interdisciplinary Studies, and we aim to foster interdisciplinary research here in Nepal. That's one objective of our institutions. And the next one is we want to train the new generation of students or researchers doing interdisciplinary research. And we also want to create an environment here in Nepal to think interdisciplinarily.
Why
right?
do we need
Yeah.
to think interdisciplinary?
The reason, actually, I was coming to that point. The reason why we need to think and do the interdisciplinary research is, actually, I read one book. It was quite interesting book. It was written by David Epstein. I think he's a sports journalist, and I think he writes in New York Times and New Yorker, many outlets. And the name of the book was Range, R-A-N-G, Range, How Generalists Triumphed in this Specialized World. So, this world is hyper specialized, but we need people who can look, in a very general manner, because most of the problems, they are very complex, and although we need a disciplinary expertise, but we need to think interdisciplinarily. They are all interconnected, and the global challenges that we are facing, we of course need a disciplinary domain. We need a hyper specializations to understand more, but at the same time we need to implement, and also we need to understand at least the basics of other disciplines as well. That's how the interdisciplinary thinking and interdisciplinary knowledge comes in. We call this T-shaped scholar. When I speak with other institutions, or even in my institutions with my colleagues, I always try to motivate them to become like a T-shaped scholar. Like, you have your own expertise in your own domain, but you have to also move around and know the domain of others. So coming back to that book, the David Epstein book, he gave a very good example of two guy. One is Roger Federer, and another is Tiger Woods. And Tiger Woods is the guy who is excellent in golf, right? But he doesn't know much about any other sports. He's hyper specialized. And the Roger Federer, he literally played everything which is round, like baseball, volleyball, football, all the tennis and everything. And finally, he settled into the tennis, and he set several records, and so that is nothing, to become like Tiger Woods, or you can be a Tiger Woods or Roger Federer. It's your choice. But we are living in the world where the disciplinary expertise is keep changing, our societal priority has been changing, and the things that now may be obsolete in 2 years.
Most of your research connect to nature, human, society, and all these interconnected connections.
Yes.
Can you just just provide some of the examples how it's very important with
sure.
research?
And that's why you need to know little bit about all disciplines. That's my point. So coming back to my research, so usually my research is not that diverse. If you put it in a big jar, but if you look at in a very hyper specialized lens, and you can see it's a very diverse, because I have published articles in land use change, climate change, and
urban
planning, all those sort of things. But the basic thing is that if you mostly my research is all about the human nature interactions, how we interact with nature. Nature provides different services to us. That could be like the medicinal plants, water, carbon, all those services, or could be anything like the religious services we cannot measure. And we, through various actions, we have an impact on nature, right? And basically, my research is mainly focuses on understand the impact of our actions, like how the land use change has impact on the ecosystems, and also how different services at what level to which part of the society, and who is more dependent on the natural resources, those sort of things. So if you look at that lens, then it comes in a very small domain.
Personal level, when I read your journey, a scientific journey, you did your PhD from Boston, and when I visited over there, my daughter still wanted to search the science museum around here, in Boston. So from there to here and in remote areas, how do you feel about it?
Well, basically, I don't feel anything exciting or anything different, because even when I was in Boston, or when I was in Germany or Australia, I basically do the same thing that I'm doing here now, or even when I was in Karnali. Basically, I'm curious to know new things, and I'm curious.
Not like many people have that aspiration, and then the power to come here and fulfill your dream, but you are doing it. I think you are living the life of many dreamers.
Oh, well, thank you for that, but it's not that, I should not say, it's not that exciting, but of course it is exciting because I'm doing, otherwise I'd have done different things. But maybe, it's inspirational for somebody.
So you were there at Karnali for some
Yeah. I've been there over the last, actually in the last year. I spent almost quarter quarter of my time doing field work in Karnali region. Actually, I traveled 7 districts of Karnali, and then even I traveled to the one of the remotest part, that Limi Valley of Homla. So I traveled all around, and actually even when I was in graduate schools in University of Massachusetts Boston, I did my field work here in Nepal. Actually, I did in Dolpa. So I know a lot about Karnali at that time, and then now as well, and that is one of the motivations that because the Karnali has given me what I am here now, because I work there, and this is their knowledge, and I'm just documenting their knowledge, and helping also, but also benefiting from it. And so I just wanted to give something, and then So perhaps this is the time, and I'm trying to, through my capacity, and I'm.
What is your current research areas now in that region?
Yeah, so we are actually working on rangeland ecosystems. So Karnali is the best place to work on that areas, because the Nepal.
So are you focusing on a specific
Yeah.
areas, like in rangeland, like whatever?
Okay. So basically, we are doing, rangeland is a socio-ecological system. So, since our institutions is interdisciplinary research institution, so our research is obviously interdisciplinary research. So basically, we are doing the survey of the rangeland change in Karnali over the last 5 years. Using the remote sensing data, and also looking at the ecological part, like we are examining the impacts of grazing in the species richness, and also we are also monitoring the change of the livelihood of the herders and the herder profession overall, documenting their traditional knowledge. So basically, from spatial.
Do you have any significant results coming out?
Actually, yes. We prepared one major policy document for Karnali government. So that is, we prepared the rangeland management strategy and action plan for next 10 years for the Karnali region. So one is that, and the other is like we are writing a couple of papers, the drivers of rangeland change in Karnali, and we have documented, as I said, using the remote sensing data, like we have documented the changes in the Karnali and the drivers of changes in the Karnali's rangeland. And we also try to quantify the ecosystem services, and we have some experimental work going on there. Like we are doing some restoration work, and so we are continuing research. It hasn't finished yet, and so now the good part is that we are collaborating with some of the Chinese counterpart, and some of
also
the
beyond the border.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and next. This actually springs and summer we'll go there again. That
Do you have research area in China as well, or?
No, actually, but that project is about the understanding the rangeland change and the drivers of change in 4 countries. So China, Nepal, Bhutan, and India.
Especially in Himalayan.
Yes, Himalayan range. So basically, I'm collaborating with them.
We can really see the impact of climate change in Himalayan range. And
Yes.
have you ever noticed in your research as well? If we talk these days, like it has a massive impact, not only in this range. The impact of climate change in this range have impact on livelihood of billions of peoples.
One of the thing that I can notice is there are lots of talks about the climate change and impacts of climate change in the Himalayas, but there aren't many credible research outcome. I haven't seen.
That's why I'm asking. Yes, you were.
Yeah. I haven't seen any like kind of long-term empirical research that quantify the impact of climate change in the flora.
Just looking at the snow, we cannot really say that, right?
Yes. There are multiple drivers of those changes. Like it could be land use change, it could be the natural processes, or of course there is a climate change, and of course we have quantified like that there is a changes in temperature, precipitations, those climatic factors, and as you just mentioned, there has been change in the snow cover or the melting of snow. It's documented, but how that has impact on the local livelihood, on the floras, faunas, the entire ecosystem is migration. All those things are, I would say, there are fragmented sort of evidence there, but the credibility of that information is also questionable. And also the research regarding, as I said, there hasn't been any kind of experimental, long-term research, because to attribute the changes to the climate, we need some sort of like a empirical research, right?
Nepal is in the middle of a Himalayan range, right? We have a very unique ecosystem, we have a very diverse environment, but we have a research institution very scarce, and the efforts are kind of like very like diverse and scarce. Like, why don't we have a big project, a big system to which can bring all the scientists together? It's not a big country.
Yeah, that absolutely. You actually you have raised a very valid questions. Why not? It's a.
And we have a very like globally renowned scientists here in every sector.
The thing is that we haven't prioritized our research. The country hasn't prioritized our developmental priorities. For example,
research should be on the top.
I know, but what kind of research should we have at the top, right? That is also
you we can say a private level like the interdisciplinary research, but I think our government need to have a multidisciplinary research system where all these renowned scientists can come together. They have a space on it.
Maybe even if they are working in a separate institutions, I would say there should be a mechanism which recognize the expertise of others and also value them, and then synthesize those informations periodically and then
Nepal
communicate.
Academy of Sciences working on
yes, something like that. The National Academy of Sciences and Technology, in other part of the world, in the developed world, that is the basic job of their national academy. They assess the evidence, do through the periodic assessment, and then they set the priorities, they identify the gaps, and they identify the challenges, and they set the priorities based on that. Okay, this is the 5-year plan for doing research in certain domain, right? That's my point. We don't have any sort of priority. Somebody comes in and then, okay, maybe his or her expertise, and they try to push that agenda, and then, okay, let's do this, and then after their tenure, the another person come, and this is, like this pull and push of this agenda, and that doesn't make any like good outcome.
And even the organizational archives or like the documentation is that lacking in Nepal?
Of course. As I said, there is no proper sort of like a research ecosystem here, which is well functioning. Partly because we don't have a priority of doing research, and we don't also, we couldn't identify our strength, which is the area. Every country has their own sort of strength and challenges, right?
We do have a strength in so
many things. We like for me, given the richness of our biodiversity, culture, and climate, and the Himalayas, we should be at the top of the in the world, doing research in the Himalayas, right? The Sherpa or mountaineering or all sort of things, because that is given, to us by nature, right? Right.
Going on this line, like you returned back to Nepal almost 5-7 years. You were doing incredibly very good work. Even with a private research institution, your institution was ranked among top 10 by the Nature Index. It was amazing work, and I see you contributing for so many years in Nepal. Okay. So what could be your plan, like to keep for the society, for the nation?
So one of the things that when we establish our institutions, it is written even in our statement, in the mission, vision, all that thing is reflected there in the objectives document. We have, like we are very focused on producing the credible knowledge, which is also legitimate as well as relevant. For a country like Nepal, who has lots of different challenges, societal challenges, and the priorities, we have several, poor people, the poverty, environmental challenges, and so many challenges are there. Even in a political spectrum, there are challenges, right? So we need to solve those things as well. And there is, again, the scientific research that we are advocating or we are talking. And then, for us, we don't have like liberty of doing research which is not very relevant to our country. It's a curiosity. I can do anything, right? But if you are using like the taxpayers' money, or if you are using the public funding, we need to focus on more on the research which is relevant. So that is our priority. Try to do something very relevant to our country, to our community, to our people.
Yeah, so if I talk with you, I just wish we could talk longer, but coming to end, what would be your message to the audience listening this program, like the scientists, the policy makers, the students? What would be your specific message from this program?
Well, if you look at from like there are, people are saying there aren't any opportunities here in Nepal. This is kind of like cynic statement floating, through the social media and everything. But if you want to do something, do research, Nepal is a quite virgin place to do any sort of research, because there hasn't been any like a good informations. We have to do a lot, and we can do and we can produce good knowledge, and that helps to build your career and also can contribute at least some extent to the society, but at the same time, I would say, don't try to be over ambitious, and try to be realistic as well. Try to be rational, and then do the best whatever you can do.
Thank you so much for coming here, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.